Welcome back to This Explainer, brought to you by Forge College. Today we're diving into designing responsive dApp interfaces. I am absolutely thrilled you're here, mainly because in our last ecosystem capstone lesson, you actually survived the trenches of debugging those nasty backend integration failures. Seriously, give yourself a massive round of applause for that. But now it is time to shift gears. We need to build a functional front end that literally prevents your users from accidentally breaking all those perfectly integrated backend systems you just spent so much time fixing.
Because, let's be totally honest here, your backend might be working flawlessly. The Solana smart contracts are humming along, the nodes are syncing, the logic is absolutely bulletproof. But, does your user know that? Imagine the pure, unadulterated panic a user feels when they click swap. Thousands of dollars are on the line, and the screen just sits there. Did it go through? Did they just lose their life savings? Did it disappear into the digital void? And all this panic happens just because you forgot to add a simple loading spinner. We want to avoid that existential dread at all costs.
So here is our engineering blueprint for today. Number 1, the transaction relay race. Number 2, local versus authoritative state. Number 3, blueprinting responsive breakpoints. Number 4, the token swap example. And finally, number 5, preparing the handoff artifacts.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the transaction relay race.
This brings us to a mental model you absolutely need to wrap your head around for Web3 frontends. You see, a blockchain transaction isn't just a single magic click of a button. It is a relay race across time, passing a data baton through different interface stations. You've got Phase 1, composition, where the user is building the transaction. Phase 2 is submission. Phase 3 is propagation across the network. And Phase 4 is confirmation. Now, at every single one of these stations, your UI has two massive jobs. First, state transformation. That means updating its internal model, like switching from a draft state to submitted. And second, signal emission. It has to fire off an event to let the rest of the interface know exactly what is happening so it can update dynamically without leaving the user completely in the dark. Moving right along to Section 2, local versus authoritative state. Understanding that relay race naturally leads us to the vital rules of local versus authoritative state. The crucial point here is understanding the boundary. Local state is temporary. Think of it like scribbling on a notepad. Form inputs, validation flags like, did they actually type a valid number? This state stays completely isolated inside the form component. But authoritative state, that is written in stone. That's the confirmed transaction hash or the final network status provided by the blockchain itself. That data absolutely must be stored much higher up in your component tree so that multiple parts of your UI, like your balance header and your activity timeline, can observe the exact same final outcome without duplicating logic.
And that brings us to a heavy engineering term, idempotency. For UI, it simply means your components must tolerate repeated lifecycle events without duplicating interface entries. If the blockchain network is lagging and it accidentally sends two submitted signals, your interface shouldn't draw two transaction receipts. If it does, the user's going to think they just paid twice and completely freak out. The UI has to be smart enough to say, I already have this baton, I definitely don't need a second one. It's all about designing a system that remains stable and accurate even when those network signals get messing.
All right, Section 3, blueprinting responsive breakpoints. This is where we lay out the practical visual tracks for our relay race so it works perfectly across literally any screen size. On mobile, which is under 600 pixels, you're using a single column, stacking your components, and relying on sticky footers so the submit button doesn't completely vanish under the digital keyboard. On tablet, between 600 and 1024 pixels, you can introduce two columns and collapsible side panels to really make use of that extra space. And on desktop, above 1024 pixels, you finally have the real estate for multi-column dashboards with persistent sidebars and visible real-time activity timelines. By the way, mastering these foundational design strategies is something we cover extensively in Forge College courses, and it's exactly what separates a clunky dApp from a truly professional one.
Now for Section 4, the token swap example. Abstract UI theory is great and all, but let's anchor this blueprint into reality. This list brilliantly illustrates the component inventory required for a simple token swap. You have the token selector and amount input handling the composition phase. The quote preview is reading the Oracle data to ensure the user gets a fair, transparent price. The confirmed CTA and submission modal are managing the submission phase. And finally, the activity timeline and receipt detail are standing by to handle network propagation and authoritative confirmation. See how that works? Every single piece has a specific, isolated job in the relay race, ensuring the data baton is never, ever dropped.
To make this swap feel lightning fast, we use a real game changer called Optimistic UI.
This means instantly rendering a pending state in the interface immediately upon submission, using a temporary identifier before the actual network confirmation even arrives. So why do we do this? Because user psychology absolutely demands it. It keeps the user calm. It provides immediate visual feedback that says, hey, I'm working on it, while they wait for the blockchain's slower, authoritative finality. Without this, a user might impatiently click the swap button 3 or 4 times thinking it's broken, which, as you can imagine, leads to total disaster.
But please, always remember, accessibility is never optional. You must use ARIA roles, ensure proper keyboard focus, and this is crucial. You have to combine color with text and icons for all error states. Color alone is simply not enough to signal if the transaction baton was dropped. Think about it. If a transaction fails, a red border doesn't help someone who is colorblind one bit. You need a clear icon and explicit text saying, "Transaction failed, try again," to prevent user errors and confusion. Building inclusive interfaces is a core responsibility for every single developer.
And finally, Section 5, preparing the handoff artifacts.
This is the crucial workflow step where you actually package all these brilliant schematics for your development team. Step 1, annotate your screen breakpoints clearly. Step 2, list the component props and lifecycle events so the data flow is obvious to everyone. Step 3, create JSON fixtures, which is just a fancy way of saying sample data for your pending, confirmed, and failed states. Delivering these exact, meticulously crafted artifacts completely eliminates developer guesswork. They don't have to guess what an error state looks like because you've given them the exact code blueprint in a simple, easy-to-read format. This drastically reduces UI regressions and will save your team hours of painful debugging during implementation.
So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. Are your handoff artifacts precise enough to actually survive implementation? Taking the time to build clear, responsive blueprints makes all the difference between a frustrating, broken app and a beautiful, seamless user experience. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer made by Forge College. If you want to master these skills and build the future of the web, I highly encourage you to head over to forge.college to learn more about this subject and dive even deeper into Web3 development. See you next time.